following that, I started getting these weird occurrences with the number 1111.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if have you looked into much with the 1111 yourself? Do
Oh
you know
yeah,
about it?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, to set the groundwork for where I'm coming from, obviously, I've got a few like facts here that I'd just like to say because obviously it's the basis for a lot of my work.
Yeah, sure.
And obviously, this number, this 1111, is it seems to work itself into a lot of things. I mean, predominantly the first thing is the universe itself, and obviously on the 11th of August 1999 at 11:11 a.m. there was a total solar eclipse that was observed through Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you move that further on the end date, December 21st, 2012, the end date of the main calendar, the winter solstice, which is when the calendar ends, is at 11:11 a.m.
So I've heard,
So obviously,
yeah.
so we've got this effect where the universe is ringing these numbers at us, in accordance to consciousness and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you look at it in an astrological sense, with the precession of the equinoxes and the 26,000-year cycle of the Earth wobbling through the 12 signs of the zodiac, we're said to be moving into the new age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is the 11th astrological sign. And so, getting further into it, you look at the numbers of 2112, 2012, and you add all those numbers up, and you get an 11. And then you look into the sun, for instance, and the sunspot cycles are 11 years. And basically everything that you can just keep finding these 11s out of things. And you could argue that, are you looking for them? But basically, when it's that amount of things within the universe, it's not like I'm looking for them because they are there.
Yeah.
You can't deny that. And so then you start moving into the numerology of it. And for instance, if you get 1111 and you multiply it by 1111, you get the number 1234321. Which is a pyramid. Okay, so you've got a pyramid numerology that you can get out of the 1111.
Backtrack on that a little bit and take it a little bit slower for us again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you've got the time code 1111 and you multiply it by the same thing, so 1111 times 1111,
Yeah.
you get the number 1234321.
Okay.
So
yeah.
if you imagine that as a visual, you've got a pyramid.
So
Yeah.
one step up, that's number one. Then we have two, that's two steps up. Is that what you're going at here?
Yeah. So essentially, because you've got the 1234321. If you were to plot that on a graph,
Right.
on an X and Y, you'd have a pyramid.
Interesting.
And the same decreases. So if you've got 111, and you times it by 111, you get 12321. You get a pyramid, whichever way you look at it. Anything with a base of 1.
Interesting.
And so then, if you look at the 11 itself, and in binary, an 11 stands for a 3. So obviously you've got a trinity out of it. Do you know what I mean? So if you were to convert it to binary, it would mean it'd be 3. So essentially, then if you look at this idea of the trinity with it, 33rd degree Masons and the number 33 that goes around. Obviously, if you turn that into the trinity and you divide 33 by 3, you get 11.
That's interesting.
So you start seeing these 11s, as I'm saying. So then you move on to recent events, and you get to September the 11th, 2001, right? And you realise that the building was stood like an 11. The two towers stood like an 11.
Indeed.
And then you've got 9/11, which is 9 plus 1 plus 1, which is 11. And then you realise that September the 11th was 111 days until the end of the year. And then you start thinking about the first plane that hit the World Trade Center, and it was Flight 11.
There you go, yeah.
Right, and the total number of crew on Flight 11 was 11. And then you look into it further, and the New York State was the 11th state of the U.S. Constitution. Right, and so then you start thinking about where September the 11th stands in year as far as years are concerned. And September the 11th, 2001 stands 11 years from 2012.
Yeah.
Right. And there's an author called Jose Arguelles. He wrote that from 1992 to 2012 would be in a period of May and no time, the time of no time, which was a transition of the ages kind of period in which, basically world disasters and tension would be on the up and rise constantly. And this period of no time was 1992 to 2012. And so 9/11 in September the 11th, 2001 was 9 years from the start of no time, 11 years till the end of no time. So, synchronistically, it was placed bang on where, it should have been. And So then you start thinking about, was 9/11 an event that was either, was it as Jose Arguelles would put it, was it an inevitable event? Sorry,
Yeah.
inevitable event. Was it designed by the universe for it to happen as it did?
Yeah.
You look into it further, and World Trade Center commenced building in 1966 and finished building it in 1977. So it took 11 years to create as well.
Yeah.
So you can move on from that and forget all that for the time being, and then you can get to September the 11th in history. And on September the 11th, 1990, at 9:09 p.m., that's 11 years prior to 9/11, George Bush Sr. made his very first speech entitled "Towards a New World Order" in the UN, at the UN. So this was 11 years prior. And then if you take that back 60 years, so you go back to September the 11th, 1941, you'll realise that 60 years to 9/11, that was when the soil was broken for the Pentagon.
Pentagon, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so you've got this date, September the 11th, again running through this kind of, the nasty war machine of America, if you want to call it that.
Exactly.
And so then basically there's something that happened much further back in time than that. And there's a book written in 1981, and it was called The Birth of Christ Recalculated. And it was written by a guy called Ernest L. Martin. And he claims to have calculated the exact date of Jesus Christ's birthday based on celestial charts for that era.
Yeah.
Basically, he's worked out with the famous Star of Bethlehem, which was, he worked out that essentially Jesus Christ was born on September the 11th, 3 BC. And this book was released in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've got another date there.
And I think that is, sorry to interrupt there, but I think that's actually a key area to why we potentially are seeing so many things oriented around the 9 and the 11 September.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, when it comes into other significant events, for instance, when you think about America and NASA and stuff, the very first shuttle that got to the moon was Apollo 11.
Yeah, there you go.
And then, for instance, in Great Britain, I'm sure I think it's celebrated around the world actually, but on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we celebrate Remembrance Day, in which we honour our war dead, but it's on an 11/11, and it's basically the Queen and a load of other people taking poppies to a cenotaph, which is an obelisk essentially.
Yeah.
So little strange events going on all over the place.
Indeed.
I mean, talking about the Queen moving into royalty, and this is where I'll lead much deeper into royalty later on. But basically, if you look into the history of the word crown and the royal crown. The word crown was derived from Anglo-French word called couronne, which is derived from Latin for corona. But the year that the word crown, was first established was in the year 1111.
Really? That's interesting.
Right. So,
wow.
You can't just say that these are coincidences. All of these things that are kind of connected up. And I get to a point where, at first I thought there were coincidences, but then you think, what is this thing called chance?
Yeah.
What is it?
Indeed.
So anyhow, that's the groundwork for 11. And then this is where I'd started seeing this time code 1111 on clocks and stuff, and this is when I started getting this flood of information. I don't know where I've been receiving it from, but I've been receiving it from somewhere recently. I don't know what it's all about, to be honest. But basically, sorry.
No. I just wanted to say it's interesting, and to some extent, I think that this is in a way information that wants to get out. I think it's kind of a self-containing awareness within itself, meaning that it is trying to reach out and teach us how things are interconnected. And I think that numerology and so-called coincidence or meaningful coincidence, synchronicity, is a perfect way to demonstrate to us that everything is interconnected. And I think that there are so many levels to all of this. So what we're beginning to discover are some of the most, in a way, actually obvious and very clear signs of this. But I would imagine that this is something that actually runs throughout exactly everything. If you have, basically the amount of time to study something or look at it in close enough detail.
Exactly, I mean, the thing with all the 11s for me is essentially, I come from the viewpoint, I believe in a mind before matter universe.
Yeah.
You know, everything stems from consciousness. Consciousness precipitates matter, not the other way around, as scientists would have you believe it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way that I can, you know, kind of prove that to myself and hopefully to others is that, I mean, I don't mean to be crude about this, but when, for instance, a man is sleeping and he has an orgasm in the middle of the night, right? The process that has created that is not any physical action. It's all stemmed from thought.
Yeah.
And so if you think about that, then obviously that thought has then created the ability to create life.
That's
If
right.
you understand where I'm coming from.
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
definitely, exactly. It's a very
I
good
mean,
point.
that for me is the proof that everything is a mind before matter universe. You know, you can create life with thought.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that means that everything that you're looking at essentially is consciousness.
Hmm.
And that's my way of like that's where I come from with a lot of this. And given the 11s, you know, connected with the Pentagon and connected with the 9/11 like World Trade Center disaster and everything, that to me is indicative of someone else trying to hijack consciousness. I don't know what it is, but for me, there seems to be some kind of other side of things that are hijacking this number for themselves.
Yeah.
But basically, moving into the Olympics work, obviously, I mean, it's been bandied around the internet quite a bit, but if you shuffle the Olympics 2012 logo around, you can spell the word Zion.
Indeed.
And, you know, there's a lot of stigma against the word, and, you know, for no reason whatsoever. But obviously, Zion stands for the term New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And this got me, having seen the Ian Crane speech and everything, this got me doing my, essentially, you know, I had an urge to start my own research into this. I wanted to find out if what was saying could be proven, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And first thing that brought to my mind was the poem by William Blake. And William Blake wrote a poem in the 18th century called Jerusalem. And there's a paragraph, the final like few words in that poem says, "I will not cease from mental flight, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land." So basically, William Blake was a known 18th century esotericist with connections to the Freemasons. And, you know, he was famous for such pieces of artwork as Urizen the Creator, which is a big picture of like kind of, you know, the Creator with a compass opened up like a pyramid. Just like, you know, Freemasonic symbology and stuff.
Didn't he reference the Newton in regards to that painting? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, there is the Newton painting as well, and Newton is kind of on the lurched over on the floor with his compass. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's a different painting of William Blake.
It is, okay, yeah.
But essentially in that poem, we'd got an acknowledgement from a guy connected with esoteric research that they were intent on building Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land. So, you know, we're thinking, like, when we talk about the Olympics 2012, we're talking about something that's been planned for hundreds of years, and there's a lot of proof that I've dug up that can show that. But basically, moving into the Olympics even further, after this talk, and when I got back from this talk in July last year, the first thing that happened was there was a video released by the Olympic Committee, and this was a stadium design video.
Welcome to the next stage in our journey to the Olympic and the Paralympic Games in London in 2012. And I will never tire of saying that. The Olympic spirit is about finding the best in ourselves. London 2012 will be that and more.
And it was this crazy CGI, I don't know what you want to call it, action film on how they're going to build the Olympic 2012 stadium. And given what Ian had spoke about with aliens and Independence Day style spaceships and stuff, this has got it all in it. Basically, within 40 seconds of this video, there's 4 chimneys that stand like an 1111, but then it moves into the most significant symbology you could ever see with, like, you know, an Independence Day style mothership for a roof, little UFOs flying all around the London Eye, and then it ends up with robotic streetwalkers in the middle of London stomping around the place, all like towards the Olympic Stadium. I mean, it's pretty weird to watch it, and it's on my blog and it's on YouTube as well. If you just do a search for the stadium design video, you can see for yourself that there's definitely symbology in there, like, you know, whether you like it or not. So this got me thinking. I was like, where does this go? Does this mean that there is a significant event looming for the Olympics? And I started thinking to myself, well, if they're about to do this now, they've done this before. They've used the Olympics for such events before.
Yeah.
Which led me into looking into 1972 Olympics in Munich. Now, funnily enough, these were the world's first stage for global terrorism. The very first global, declared as global terrorism. The first act was in the 1972 Munich Olympics.
Indeed, yeah.
And these Olympics, there were 11 Israelis killed. So we've got the number 11 there. And they were killed by a group called Black September, which is obviously the 9th month. So it's obviously a 9/11 you've got there.
Yeah.
And that particular Olympics were host to 121 countries, which is 11 times 11. So you've got a significant event there with first global stage for terrorism, as it is.
Yeah.
And then, moving on, I started thinking, well, the year 1984, there's obviously Olympics in that year. And it's synonymous with the George Orwell book of Big Brother and, a completely, oppressive state, if you like, a New World Order kind of background.
Yeah.
And I'd briefly remembered hearing things about a closing ceremony in the 1984 Olympics and did some rooting around on the internet and obviously came across a video. In the 1984 Olympics, which were held in Los Angeles, they closed the ceremony and the audience didn't even expect this because most of the audience thought it was real at the time. It closed with a UFO flying over the Olympic Stadium, kind of communicating with the audience in a Close Encounters of the Third Kind style. The UFO eventually closes down and lands in the center of the stadium.
The glow from behind the arena. The spaceship has actually landed. Will they send a messenger? The full moon over Los Angeles. That's the real one.
At which point there's a load of smoke, and then this alien gets out and tells the audience that he likes what he sees there.
He thinks we have a visitor.
The alien himself. That is no one on stilts. That is a man 7 feet 8 inches tall.
So you got this really strange thing out of the middle of nowhere. No one was expecting it, and I don't know how you'd ever connect Olympics with this UFO event in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
But basically, obviously, 1984 symbolic year, UFO landing. So you start thinking stuff going on.
Yeah.
Not sure what. I can't really put my finger on things. And at this point, I'd decided to move away from the Olympics for a bit because I felt that I wasn't going to find much more for the time being. And it got me involved in looking at symbols of sorts and general symbolism and corporate logos. And I started off with obviously the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill.
Yeah.
And if you notice with the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, on the particular side that it's on, it's the only note that it appears on in America. And there's 4 ones on it, and they ring out 1111 either side of the dollar bill.
Indeed, yeah.
You got the same thing again. And I was looking at that and basically started comparing it to other, American institutions, looking it through, the FBI logo, the CIA logo, every single one of them. You can essentially kind of draw out the pyramid without the capstone and have an eye in the center. The same geometrics work in a lot of the official institutions of America.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get to the source of where this was, and everyone generally a misinterpretation is that America was the foundation of all of this. In 1776, and for a while I thought America was the start of all of this New World Order stuff. I didn't think any further than that. My consciousness wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
But eventually, came to me. Britain. Obviously, the British founded America.
Yeah.
On in a Western kind of empire sense, but looked at the British coat of arms, and if you pick up the British coat of arms, again you'll notice that you've got a pyramid, and where the all-seeing eye is, you've got a crown. It's the same thing. You can draw the same geometrics over it, and you've got smack bang the same symbols coming at you. So I was like, right, well, what's going on here? This is obviously a lot more, ingrained in human civilization, more than I thought, anyhow.
Indeed.
At which point, which point you then start moving to the famous corporate symbols of McDonald's and Schweppes and Starbucks. These amazing like corporations that are, you'll find them in all the symbolic places of the world. Like when I've been to Rome, you've got a McDonald's opposite the Pantheon and the Egyptian obelisk. And then if you go to the Sphinx in Cairo, and you've got a KFC and you've got a McDonald's right outside the entranceway. And, you know, literally everywhere you go, you can no doubt find one of these kind of food venues or whatever, you know, right next to some of these symbolic structures.
Yeah.
And so, with, for instance, explain the McDonald's logo, you got 9 letters in the word McDonald's. And I decided to split that up into pyramid numerology. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Split the word up. Do you know what I mean? Into a step kind of structure.
And I think you have this on your blog, isn't that right? So people that are tuning in can take a look at that.
You can take a look at it on my blog, but basically, to spell it out, basically the two, you can form a pyramid-like word out of it in which the cornerstones and the top part of the pyramid minus the capstone spell the word Mason.
Yeah.
And essentially what the pyramid is showing is that the 2 arches of Freemasonry, or the golden arches, or whatever you want to call them, emanate from the centre of the pyramid and preside all the way onto the outside of the pyramid. So essentially you've got this event that seems to preside over the pyramid. And then same thing goes with the Schweppes logo. I mean, I had a real good 11/11 moment with this because it happened in a glass of Schweppes tonic water when the ice cubes started ringing at me.
Right.
And I thought it was pretty mental, but it was insinuating something was happening.
Nice.
And I looked on the bottle, and the year 1783, obviously on the all-seeing eye, the date 1776.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, we're a bit too close for comfort here. We're in the period of the Enlightenment, is what they call it.
Yeah.
And look at their logo, and it doesn't even take any deciphering, this one. There's a pyramid with an angel on top, with a McDonald's-style M presiding over the pyramid. So essentially you've got more messianic imagery in the logo of a corporate symbol. You know, and all I can think is this company, Schweppes, they teamed up with Cadbury's. They're instrumental in destroying the health of the world because they create sugary drinks and, you know, aspartame-ridden drinks and everything that goes with it. And they're using this symbology. So you can look at that on my blog yet again because it's all on there.
Very interesting.
Get to Starbucks, and Starbucks, if you look at, when you're walking past any old Starbucks, you'll notice that the logo is 3 stars that make a pyramid, and the very top star is seated on top of a crown, which is essentially, you know, symbolic of the all-seeing eye, but underneath the crown is a woman, and that woman is Isis. So the Egyptian deity Isis. And essentially what I've realised over the past few days is that what these logos are depicting is some form of messianic event.
Yeah.
And when you look into a book, there's a book called The Secret Teachers of All Ages from 1928 by Manly P. Hall.
Indeed.
And states Isis is sometimes shown standing between 2 great pillars of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
So deity Isis stands between these pillars. So on the McDonald's logo, where you've got the M and you've got the M coinciding on the top of the pyramid, and the same on the Schweppes logo, where you've got the angel stood on top of the pyramid, they're representing Isis. There's no other way of looking at it, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So basically, Isis is symbolic of the all-seeing eye. It's the same thing. Same as when you're looking, for instance, into the Holy Trinity and stuff, and you've got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
There's the evidence of the kind of, you know, the ever-looming one who sees everything but isn't quite there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyhow, this occult symbolism, it works on a dual level. You know, like optical illusions, for instance, you can now look at a picture and do you see the old woman or do you see the young woman?
Yeah.
It's got the duality, same as everything else when it comes down to religion.
Yeah.
Most people are attuned to see one thing, but it actually means another thing as well. But it depends which version you want to go with. There's 2 ways to look at it. And my opinion on everything with the occult is that it's working on a different plane outside of the 5 sense human reality. It's something that's working in the subconscious.
Yeah.
And going on that principle of mind before matter universe, when you're looking at this occult symbolism, and if one person is, say, looking at the Schweppes logo and they're drinking Schweppes and they're buying into this logo, they're buying into the brand, they're buying into all of it. They think they're just buying into a great drink, but they're also buying into this other thing. They're buying into this messianic event, and essentially, if you think about this mind before matter universe, if this stuff, this occult symbology, is working on the subconscious, and it's working on the subconscious of a global population, then it's got the ability to still bring itself forward into matter. Do you know what I mean?
So it's what you're saying is that with the help of all these knowing people, so to speak, this is propelled forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. For instance, like when someone goes to a McDonald's and they're buying into the McDonald's, you know how clever they got that anyhow.
Right.
But when they're going in and they're buying those McDonald's, they're also, they're buying into the alternate thing, which is the symbol of, this messianic event on the top of a pyramid. It's empowering it. It's building it into the subconscious, and that subconscious can precipitate into matter at the right time.
And that's interesting, considering that many of these companies are so, they're global players. Some of these companies have bigger, a bigger economy and gain more money than certain countries do.
Well, we've got no idea how they got so successful. There's no reason for it, to be honest, apart from that there's something else there working with them. You know what I mean?
Do you also think that potentially this could work the other way around, meaning that human beings, since we've been subjected to, at least in the Western world, almost 1700 years of Christianity and so forth, that the reason also why they might want to pick a logo like this or have this message in the logo is that on some level this speaks to our unconscious. So people who are inclined to lean towards the Christian faith, for instance, are actually in some way kind of lured in by these kinds of symbols, and consequently they.
Yeah, definitely. The thing that I'll draw upon later is that how this works with more than just Christianity. Because if ISIS has many identifications, and she's got an identification as the angel Gabriel and the all-seeing eye and stuff.
Yeah.
But when we talk about this new world order and the one world religion and the one world government, the angel Gabriel is the one figure that can unite Islam and Christianity, because both of them adhere to her as God's messenger.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at implementing this new world order, it's got to be something that combines these two religions. And that particular figure is that thing that can combine those religions. I'll touch on that in a bit anyhow. It gets deeper. I'll be telling you all it is in a minute.
Sure. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'll give it a bit of time. I'll give you another 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
And I'll let you know who it is. But anyhow, moving back to the Olympics logo and the Zion logo and the 2012 and stuff. There's a little bit of research. There's stuff on the net about this as well. The company who created that logo was a company called Wolf Ollins. It's a brand agency. And this brand agency was set up by a chap called Wally Ollins, and this man was responsible for branding corporate Europe. So basically, GE Capital, all these logos that have kind of, sunk into the subconscious of sorts, these are all created by this man called Wally Ollins, who created the 2012 logo as well. And it turns out his dad was a Freemason.
Nice.
So the chances are that, there's an interview online where he references his dad trying to get him to be a Freemason. He never actually says whether he is or not, but the chances are it's in the family. And, there's these messages in the logos that this man's produced. It's a Freemasonic branding, company for corporate Europe.
Yeah. Wow.
Essentially.
Really interesting.
Sorry.
Yes, I wanted the name there again. Wally Ollins, is that right?
Wally Ollins.
Right, thank you. Okay.
Wallylins.
Perfect, thank you.
Right, and so at this point, you've got this connection to Freemasonry with the logo and stuff, and it moves much higher than Freemasonry. That's just like the outside protection for this stuff. I basically loaded up, Google Earth. Wanted to have a look at the London site from the air. I wanted to see, what it is that's so special about this place. And it just so happened that the particular site in Stratford was the only last bit of wasteland that was that was left vacant in London. It was the one last place that they could do things for something like the Olympics. So it's quite lucky that they had it in the first place. And what I noticed was I started looking at the actual street plan of this place. And to go through it, you've got a number of roads that circle the site, and the first road is a road called the Eastern Cross Route. Oh, sorry, the East Cross Route, which is a reference to the Eastern Cross. The Eastern Cross is an Orthodox cross, and it's a modified version of the Patriarchal cross. It's got two smaller cross beams across the side. The next road down, you've got Carpenter's Road, which encircles the site. Carpenter, who was a carpenter? Oh, good old Joseph.
Yeah,
he
of
was
course.
a carpenter, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Next road down, you've got a road called the Great Eastern Road. And obviously when you refer to something as the Great Eastern, it's obviously like the Great Eastern Star. So you look into the Great Eastern Star, it turns out that the Order of the Eastern Star is the largest fraternal organisation in the world that both men and women can join, and it was founded by someone highly connected with the Freemasons, and their symbol is the pentagram. So this is the next road down.
Yeah.
Moving on around the Olympic site. If you envisage we're encapsulating the whole Olympic site here, the next road along is Angel Lane. And obviously the famous angel is the angel Gabriel. So we've got Angel Lane here. Next road along, we've got Temple Mills Lane. Temple Mills, where the water mills belong to the Knights Templar.
Yeah.
So another connection there. The Knights Templar were the poor fellow soldiers of Christ in the Temple of Solomon. And then encapsulating all of this is Church Road. It's obviously another biblical road name.
Yeah.
So all the way around the Olympics 2012 site, which you could call Zion if you go with the logo, is biblical road names surrounding the whole site. There's not one road name that's not biblical. So you start looking at that and you think, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Because this site was supposedly a fluke that they found this, and what we're looking at is something that is clearly quite well planned. So if you move into, like, for instance, there's one road here that's called is the East Cross Route is called the A12. It's another road name for it. And if I move into, say, for instance, hieroglyphics for a start, hieroglyphics back in the days of ancient Egypt, they were seen as talismans, in that a particular hieroglyphic didn't mean like one letter, like a H. It meant a multitude of emotions. It meant a multitude of meanings. And it basically, it drew in the powers of the stars. That's what a hieroglyph was. It was a talisman.
Yeah.
It wasn't a direct translation. So, like, for instance, when they do a direct translation of the Rosetta Stone, you can't translate hieroglyphics into H, A's and Z's and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So basically, if you think of this idea of hieroglyphics as talismans, power of the stars embedded in this symbol, if you want to call it that, and then everyone assumes that the English language moved on from that, and that our letters just meant letters, just to spell words out, and that there weren't symbols at all. But the fact is that if you look into the idea that the power control in Egypt never died out, and they've been endemic to the power structure from the very start, the letters on the English alphabet are just as much hieroglyphs as the hieroglyphics were, the talismans.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
if you look at the letter A, for instance, you've got a pyramid with a capstone, a capital letter A.
Yeah.
And then if you look at an S, you've got a snake. And then if you've got like a dollar sign, you've got a snake rising up what could be a kundalini or, a DNA coil, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But basically these letters have got meanings behind them. And so this main road that cuts through the Olympics 2012 site, which is called the East Cross Road, is also known as the A12 road. Now there's hundreds of A roads in Britain. And so what are the chances that of all the roads that cross through it were an A12 road, a Pyramid 12 road? Do you see where I'm coming from with it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's pretty strange that one road, this is what I'm saying, coincidences, it's a load of rubbish that this is coincidence. It's not coincidence whatsoever.
No.
And then you look into the situation of where it's situated in London and Eastern London, and you'll find that it's in two areas. It's separated between Leighton and Leytonstone. And I don't know if you're aware of what a ley line is, but basically...
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, if you look into this, the Olympic site is bang on where two lane lines cross over. So we're on about something that's connected to the energy grid of, the world, like the lifeblood of the earth, if you want to call it that.
Nice.
Interestingly enough, before when we commenced work on the Olympics 2012 site as well, I mean, I got this information off a chap on a message board, but he basically said that they'd organised a massive rave on the Olympic 2012 site, in which no doubt there's a lot of government-sponsored drugs out there. and a lot of energy being given off.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if you think about these energy lines, and they're inviting people to have raves on these sites, alongside holding some of the biggest like competitions in the world ever. Think about what's happening with all that energy.
Oh,
Where
yeah,
is
of
that
course.
going? It's probably being fed into the system somewhere. And I think that's I mean, there's a lot of for instance, as far as UFOs are concerned and stuff like that, if you look into UFO sightings and stuff, a lot of them can be attributed to being near ley lines and stuff, because obviously a UFO isn't necessarily something that's definitely fixed in our particular 3D world, something that could be obviously of another dimension of sorts.
Yeah.
But basically, like, you've got this Zion street map that's fully biblical in every way, and you then decide. Well, I decided to pick up the Bible. I don't normally pick up the Bible. I'm not that type of person, but basically picked up and went to the book of Mark, and I decided to go to the chapter 11, verse 11. You know, the old 11:11.
Yeah.
We got this passage here. Then Jesus went into Jerusalem and into the temple and looked around at everything. Since it was already late, he went out with his 12 disciples to Bethany. So we've got a mention of Jesus entering Jerusalem,
Yeah.
which is obviously Zion's the New Jerusalem. And it says that since it was already late, he went out with his 12 disciples to Bethany. Right next to the Olympics 2012 site, down a Roman road, is a place called Bethnal Green. Right next to the Olympics 2012 site, down a Roman road, is a place called Bethnal Green. Bethnal Green, Bethany, sounds the same, pretty close, you know, not too far off.
Yeah.
Bethnal Green is 3.3 miles, 33 degree Masons and everything, 3.3 miles from Charing Cross, the centre of London.
Yeah.
So symbolic again, numerology and everything that goes with it.
Of course, and I don't know if you've heard, but if we look at the research of Ralph Ellis, he talks that Mary Magdalene might have been Mary of Bethany. You know, there's a whole connection between Bethany and the family of Jesus, if you will, or you know.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, with the whole idea of the Dan Brown bloodline and the Priory of Sion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I'll get onto that shortly, but that's all part of the plan. That's all part of what's intended here. They wanted to unseat the public with the idea that there's a lost bloodline of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, pretty scary. To top it off, but on a funny note, have you heard of EastEnders before?
Come again? Say it again.
EastEnders, the English soap opera.
No, I have not. No.
No, right. It's a popular thing that most of, I'd say 90% of the population probably watch it. Unfortunately,
Really?
It's those typical soap operas, and if you watch the intro sequence to that, basically behind the EastEnders logo, where on this intro sequence, is the Olympics 2012 site. So basically, this thing that's making everyone forget about what's going on around them, that's distracting them, providing them with rubbish stories and terrible plot lines and everything, stopping people from thinking, is symbolically showing this area on the TV screen every night of the week.
Interesting.
Quite
Very
weird.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, I mean, now I can get onto. I think I've set a good standing for this whole idea of Zion and this biblical event of sorts.
You know what I think we should do like this, Rick? I think that we should take a break right here, actually, because this has been basically an hour-long preface here, and obviously I've got tons of questions and comments, but I definitely want to just let you kind of lay out what you have here, so to speak, and see where this leads us. So I'm going to ask you, Rick, to just basically continue on the trail that you ended in our first segment, if you will.
Okay. Right, well, obviously we've laid out a ground plan with a street map of, the Zion Olympics in 2012, like biblical road names left, right and centre, symbology and symbols and everything, it's all over the place. So I sat down and I started thinking to myself, so what is going to happen? Obviously this is something that's clearly been in the making for, I mean, I'd presume that those roads have been named them roads for over 100 years, because the street map hasn't changed in that time. And so what I started looking into was the idea of the Trinity, because obviously the pyramid numerology and everything gets involved in all of this, and obviously I think there's a lot to be answered for in there. And so obviously the precession of the equinoxes is a 26,000 year cycle, in which a roughly 26,000 year cycle, and takes just over 2,000 years to transition into a new age. Obviously, 26,000 years through 12 signs of the zodiac, and that's about 2,100 for a new age. And obviously, with the dawn of Christianity under Jesus, we entered the age of Pisces, which was symbolised by a fish. And prior to that, under the age of Aries, we were symbolically represented with Moses and his ram's horn.
Yeah.
So, and we're reportedly moving into the 11th astrological sign of Aquarius, which is the water bearer. And so you start looking into religion as a whole, and you realise that every time that there's, one of these kind of, transition of the ages, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
there's almost like a new Trinity event, which finds itself, radically shaping the landscape. So, for instance, the last Trinity event we had essentially was the Jesus, Joseph, and Mary, who had been touched by the angel Gabriel. Trinity, and obviously in Christianity as a whole, you've got the Holy Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which is symbolic again for the angel Gabriel. Hindu religion, we've got Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The Jewish Trinity, which essentially not as personified, but was Moses, Ark of the Covenant, and the Temple. And then obviously moving into the human body, we've got spirit, body, and soul. We've got it all. But the fundamental Trinity of the ages, like that started it all, was the Osiris, Isis, and Horus connection.
Yeah.
Obviously, Osiris and Isis, mother and father, giving birth to Horus, who was essentially the personified, and it was the sun. But so, given that we've got this 1776 on the gold, the Great Seal on the dollar bill, starting at 1776, we've got the Latin of Novus Ordo Seclorum, and it's literally Latin for New Order of the Ages. So it's not New World Order, it's New World Order of the Ages. So it's obviously insinuating that it's to do with the transition of the equinox, of the ages moving into the sign of Aquarius. And so I started thinking to myself, well, if we're moving into this, we're going to have to expect new leaders. We're going to have to expect this new kind of, forefront of religion that's going to come forward and, save the planet as such. Well, that's how they're going to deal with it.
Sell it to us, yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to sell it to us? Come on, give us your best shot. Basically, I started looking towards royalty because obviously, royalty seems to be where it's at in the sense of the coat of arms of Great Britain. It's on there. But everywhere I look, it always leads me to royalty. It's a bit like David Icon's reptilian kind of stuff. It always kind of leads to this weird thing, whatever you want to call it. And obviously, William is a symbolic person within the continuation of the royal family and everything. But basically, I've nothing to go on at first, and I just had this real small whim. I thought, Diana, is she going to be the personification of Isis? Is she going to be the next person to be identified with this god? And I was thinking it through, and it's like, quite probably not, but, let's have a look anyhow, may as well have a look.